Good morning and thank you for joining me. In today's update, we will be examining the upcoming weather pattern, which I believe is shaping up to be the most promising one for early to mid-December that I have observed in my 7 or 8 years of producing these videos. It truly appears that we are in for a period of persistent cold with repeated Arctic blasts and multiple opportunities for snowfall. We are currently tracking a major snowstorm across the Midwest, the Plains, the Great Lakes, and the Ohio Valley. We will also be looking ahead to a system developing for the East Coast in just a few days, and now the forecast models are beginning to suggest even more activity is on the way. It is certainly a remarkably active pattern ahead of us. So let us begin by taking a look at the current conditions. Very quickly, I want to show you this massive snow system that is currently in progress. You can see how many states are being significantly affected by this storm. As we zoom in, we can observe the impact in parts of Kansas, Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan, where Ohio State and Michigan are playing at noon. The game may well be over by the time you are watching this. It is also quite remarkable to see Indiana, Ohio, and even northern Kentucky experiencing impacts from this system. The primary area of heavy snowfall is located right here for these communities. Very heavy snowfall is already accumulating, making for a truly significant situation. Let's now move on to the model guidance, beginning with the European model. We can see this system as it progresses. I have been mentioning in our Discord channel, which, by the way, you can find a link for in the description and the pinned comment below, and we would be happy to have you join the discussion that if this were an evening game, say at 7 p.m. on Saturday, we would see some changes right there in the small town of Ann Arbor, Michigan. We would likely be seeing more moderate to heavy snowfall moving in. The field would probably be covered in snow and visibility would be very low. So we did miss a potentially dramatic weather situation, although I do expect some flakes to be flying during the game, which will be a wonderful sight to see. However, enough about that, as this is a weather channel, not a sports channel. I do have to remind myself of that from time to time. By tomorrow, we see that low-pressure system moves up into Canada. Some lingering snowfall will remain for the Great Lakes, and we will begin to see some snowfall starting in the interior northeast, mostly light to moderate as this system passes through. By the time we reach Monday, the first of the month, that system will have moved out, but we can already see our second snowstorm beginning to form. Here we have this northern piece of energy and this southern piece of energy where both jet streams are beginning to merge. This will come together to create a very interesting situation for the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. So let us watch how this unfolds. That is Monday the 1st. As we head into the morning of the 2nd, we see a great deal of that snowfall over the Midwest. It will move from the Ohio Valley into parts of the mid-Atlantic and Northeast, where the storm will really intensify by the time we reach that evening. This is 7 p.m. on Tuesday. We are seeing moderate to heavy snowfall for Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania. Northern New Jersey and New York City are right on the edge, as are coastal Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Boston. Southeastern Massachusetts is also in a location where we could see either snow, rain, or a mix of both. If we see any southward or colder trends in the forecast, that will become a significant snowfall event for them. However, if we see any northward trends, it is more likely to be a rain event. So these areas are still uncertain, and the final outcome will come down to the wire. But heavy snowfall is expected for southern New England, southern New York, northern New Jersey, and much of Pennsylvania, as well as back into Ohio and West Virginia by this point. As we advance a little later into the night, we see this low has become quite a powerful storm. Its pressure is 985 millibars. This is at 1 a.m. on the 3rd of December, which will be a Wednesday. This is a very strong nor'easter just offshore. We have heavy snowfall from southern New York into southern New England and then into parts of southern Vermont, southern New Hampshire, and coastal Maine, where significant accumulations are likely. I believe this southern New England and southern New York area is the region to watch most closely for the highest snowfall totals from this event. As we continue, the storm begins to wind down by the time we reach later in the morning on Wednesday the 3rd. Once it is all said and done, we are left with very cold air after the storm moves through, resulting in some lake effect snowfall. We do get a clipper system here, as you can see around Thursday the 4th, that moves into the northern plains and upper Midwest. This brings some light to moderate snowfall to the Midwest Great Lakes and parts of the Northeast around the 5th and 6th of the month. At this same exact time, we have a great deal of northern energy diving southward alongside a jet stream pattern that would be ideal for a snow event in the mid-Atlantic and Northeast. However, the southern stream is simply too far south in this particular model simulation. This is about 6 or 7 days out in the forecast. So in theory, this could be a time frame to monitor around the 5th, 6th, and 7th. We are definitely watching that period for perhaps another interesting situation for some of these areas. We see it does not fully organize in this run, but the low-pressure system does develop. It is just too far to the south. Then we see another storm system. This one is for parts of the Midwest, Great Lakes, Northeast, and Mid-Atlantic around the 7th, 8th, and 9th as more Arctic air moves in. Then we get this interesting setup again. We have an active northern jet moving through, but a bit farther south this time. And the southern jet shows a tendency to merge with it. We already have a strong low there over the Gulf states, and as you can see on this model run for the 9th, here we get a winter storm that is developing deeper in the south, perhaps affecting Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia, as well as West Virginia, Kentucky, and Virginia. The pressure is 998 millibars off the coast of South Carolina. This is a true nor'easter, and it shows a tendency to track in this manner. This would be an opportunity for these areas, but this is far out about 11 days, so please approach this with a degree of caution. This forecast is certainly subject to change, to say the very least. As we head towards Wednesday, we see this system begins to track up the coastline, bringing some of the upper southeast and lower mid-Atlantic, some heavier snowfall, but then it does not quite make it all the way up to the northeast. We continue to see very, very cold air. And what is interesting is that while we see this storm, we also have a clipper system. It is moving through at the same time up here in the upper Midwest, bringing some light to moderate snowfall. And that system does make its way through the Midwest, the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, and into the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast as well. Then we get yet another clipper system here for the Midwest, Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast. And this one, as you can see, it moves through right to this point. The jet stream, however, is typically diving a little bit further south than that by the time it arrives here. And we do have this piece of southern energy that appears well positioned to take a track up the eastern states. Again, there is plenty of cold air in place, and this could once again place these areas on high alert. So that makes about 7, 8, or perhaps 9 opportunities. That is quite a number of potential snow systems over the next 15 days. It is an incredibly active period. So let us see where the GFS model agrees. We obviously have our current snow system. We also have the East Coast storm as well. This model places the rain snow line a little farther to the north. We can see New York City is not even in the mix for snow. They are definitely in the rain, along with Providence, Boston, and Philadelphia. It is even more clear on this particular model. So this is a more northward track favoring the interior mid-Atlantic and northeast. There is still some disagreement among the models, and then that system moves out. We do see some frequent clipper systems moving through and another potential storm for the East Coast around the 6th or 7th. Again, this is the same time frame that I was mentioning earlier to watch on the European model. So we do see some snowfall appearing here within the 10-day forecast period, so this is not necessarily in the long range. We certainly have some time to watch this. And that system does move up into the northeast. And then we get this kind of setup where if there was Arctic air moving into the east, you would have an ample amount of energy out here. But what we end up with is the northern jet moving through with a weaker low here. Our southern jet is separated, and we have a weaker low down here as well. So everything is rather separated on the GFS model run around this time frame. We do get another storm signal for the East Coast and the Ohio Valley area here around the 8th, 9th, and 10th. So that is a similar signal to the European model. And then we get more of a Midwest and Great Lakes cutter type of system there around the 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th. And then finally, the GFS model brings us into a warmer pattern. You might recall from the last few model runs originally, the GFS model suggested, hey, around the 8th, we're going to move to a warmer pattern. Then yesterday, it pushed that back to the 10th when it thought we would see a warmer pattern. And now it is showing that warmer pattern arriving after the 12th or 13th. So it keeps pushing it back by multiple days with every single new model run. This is not a good sign for confidence right now in some sort of a switch to warmer temperatures. Of course it could happen. But when we see the model continually delaying that change, it is typically a sign that it is struggling to resolve the long-term pattern. We will see what ends up happening with that. Looking at total precipitation on the European model, one might not expect this pattern during a La Nina because you have this very, very active southern jet moving through and off the East Coast. It looks very much like an El Nino pattern, but you also have that Arctic air that you typically see in more of a weak La Nina or a neutral ENSO phase popping up. And I wanted to make the argument today, just based on everything I have seen and what we now know is upcoming. I feel that the conditions we are seeing are much more similar to a neutral ENSO than to a La Nina. This is simply my professional observation at this point. Obviously, there's a great deal of winter, all of winter ahead of us. Meteorological winter begins on December 1st in just 2 days. So, there is plenty of time for things to change a bit, but for now, neutral ENSO type conditions are much more of what we are observing. Looking at the anomalies, again, you have this active clipper track moving through here, and then you have the southern jet with the nor'easters, sometimes in combination. I must point out we have drawn comparisons all year long to 2013. To 2014 and 2014 to 2015. These are 2 of the strongest analog years for this winter, and those years featured frequent clippers and frequent nor'easters. Sometimes the 2 types of storms would combine where we would see a clipper system transfer its energy and redevelop off the East Coast. We call that a Miller B nor'easter, where it moves partway off the coast and then strengthens as it moves north along the East Coast. It is certainly a very interesting comparison we are seeing here. Taking a look at the total snowfall on the European model, it is projecting a significant amount for the plains, the Midwest, the Great Lakes, and the Ohio Valley, not only from our current snow system, but also from frequent fast-moving clipper systems. Then we are expecting substantial snowfall from the upcoming 2nd and 3rd systems for the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. We are also tracking another system that will extend this area of snowfall farther south into the southern Mid-Atlantic as well. This is shaping up to be a very active pattern. Now, the American GFS model does not include that southern nor'easter, but it does show numerous systems moving through the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, and the Ohio Valley. It also indicates 1 or 2 coastal systems for the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. So we are seeing fairly good agreement overall. Regarding the temperatures, I will say the European model is forecasting the colder of the 2 scenarios. We are currently in the midst of our first Arctic blast. The second Arctic blast will be moving in for the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th of the month, followed by our 3rd Arctic blast. We can also expect a 4th one by the 7th, then a 5th and more significant blast is expected around the 7th, 8th, and 9th. After that, it appears we will be getting our 5th or 6th wave of cold air around the 13th and 14th. So the situation is very similar to yesterday's forecast, frequent Arctic blasts and frequent potential snow systems. That is a very potent combination. And I must say, in all my years of forecasting, I have never seen a pattern quite like this for the first half of December. I have certainly seen active late Decembers, and of course into the January timeframe last year is a wonderful example, but for early December it has been a very long time indeed. Looking at the GFS model's cold air forecast, we have the first Arctic blast, a second one moving in, and a third one that looks very intense. The 4th and 5th appear to be less intense, as does the 6th. These later ones are more like typical cool downs. Then the model does indicate a shift to a warmer pattern, as you can see for the 13th, 14th, and 15th. Now that time frame is about 13 or 14 days from now. Our confidence in a pattern change that far in the future is not exceptionally high, but it is a signal we need to watch. We will certainly monitor that for you. The ensemble models for the 4th through the 14th on the European model clearly show a pattern of warmth in the west and cold in the east. That is a pure and simple forecast through and through. There is really no way around it. This is what the model is projecting for the 4th through the 14th. Looking at the American GFS ensemble model, it shows the warmth out west in a very similar fashion. It also indicates some Arctic air working its way into the eastern states. But it appears to be less potent and less frequent throughout that entire period. There is a bit more of a ridge of high pressure over the southeast. It is very minor, but it does suggest some warmer temperatures for the deep southeast on this particular model. So there are small disagreements, but the overall premise remains very much the same on both of these models. This is truly a remarkable pattern. With all of that information in mind, I do hope you will consider subscribing. We provide these updates every single day. You can even select the bell icon to receive daily notifications when we upload, so you never miss an important update. And of course, if you found this video helpful, we would certainly appreciate you liking the video.